सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna devotees, all glories to Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nice to see you all here today. We're still waiting for Maharaj to show up. I'm not sure. I believe he is done with some engagements. So while we wait for him, we're going to play a tape and we'll watch, we'll listen. And if that happens to be just all what we needed to listen to, then at the end of it, we can discuss it. So this is while we wait for His Holiness Kavicandra Swami Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Raj, thank you very much for joining. Once again, last time we had a very stimulating and thought-provoking discussion about the centrality of Varnashram in
that's what it came to be. That wasn't what was planned, I guess, but
yes, that is true. But I think it was an important topic anyway.
Yeah, let's accept the need to follow Srila Prabhupada's order regarding the implementation of Varnashram Dharma. That should be the first thing.
Prabhupada did talk a lot about Varnashram, but Prabhupada also engaged during his manifest presence women in various ways in which was not done in Varnashram. Say, for example, he had women going out to distribute books and approach unknown men and talk with them and persuade them. So Prabhupada engaged devotees in various ways. And to consider that the engagements he provided that time were like emergency services or emergency instructions, and that what Prabhupada gave somewhere else, maybe in his books, those are his standard instructions. Did Prabhupada actually?
No, well, not maybe in his books, very clearly.
No. The point is that both came from Prabhupada. To say that one is emergency and one is standard, this is almost like Shankaracharya saying that some instructions in the Vedas are actually the Mahavakya and everything else is Laghu Vakya. And he uses his own hermeneutic to decide which is Mahavakya and which is Laghu Vakya. So similarly, I mean, this could lead to hermeneutical chaos in our movement. Everybody can decide which is emergency and which is not emergency. So is there any basis in Prabhupada's words for classifying some of his instructions in emergency and some as standard?
Okay, well, let me read to you from Srila Prabhupada's purport to the Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, Text 17, in which he refers to the term emergency. Srila Prabhupada wrote therein, "At the present moment, society is in a chaotic condition and everyone has given up the cultivation of spiritual life, which is especially meant for the Brahmanas. Because spiritual culture has been stopped all over the world, there is now an emergency, and therefore it is now time to train those who are considered lower and condemned so that they may become Brahmanas and take up the work of spiritual progress. The spiritual progress of human society has been stopped, and this should be considered an emergency." So Srila Prabhupada considered that he was working within an emergency situation, and that persons who are considered lower and condemned, which would not he's giving the idea that normally they wouldn't become Brahmanas, but they have taken up the work. Srila Prabhupada, in that meeting with the GBC, when Srila Prabhupada he'd called the GBC from all over the world to meet him, and they had questions, any final questions. One of the things they asked was about the composition of the GBC. This May the 28th, 1977 in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada said about the GBC members, they must all be ideal, Acharya-like. In the beginning, we have done for working. Now we should be very cautious. We've done many things for working. Now we should be very cautious. Now, the very fact that Srila Prabhupada wanted to institute Varnashram Dharma means that there would be many differences. What was required to start a spiritual movement in the West in an emergency isn't necessarily going to be the basis for our social system for the future. Not that we're always living in an emergency mode. I'm reading, there's Srila Prabhupada, Kuladri Prabhu, who was at New Vrindavan. He said that Srila Prabhupada spoke to him about the future of our movement and farms. And he said that, Kuladri Prabhu said, he got the impression that it would be a very different movement, that it would be farm-based, it would be family-based, Varnashram-based. Srila Prabhupada said to Rameshwar Swami that millions will join our farms. So that is a very different second phase of the movement from the monastic beginning, where everyone just, let's get out there and do the needful. We've got to change the world. But when the world is changed, you can't live all your life and develop a society on the basis of being in a constant state of emergency.
Essentially, what you're saying is that Prabhupada, towards the end of his life, there are a series of quotes which end of his manifest presence with us. He seems to have emphasized more strongly a particular way of functioning, and that involves like many of the quotes you said. Prabhupada was approving co-education before, but then later he said no. So what you are saying is that what Prabhupada said later, now the one quote which you gave was that, which Prabhupada says we are operating in emergency. And then later on quotes are saying that Prabhupada is saying, now we have tried various things, now we should be cautious. So when you are saying that we should be cautious, so you are inferring that what he's saying in the context of being cautious is what he wanted as the standard after the movement, in the later phases of your movement. So my question.
Well, no, it's exactly what you read into that could be interpreted in various ways. But Srila Prabhupada what I'm saying is that you're asking, why do you think there's going to be a difference before and after? But Srila Prabhupada said that so far we have done for working, now we should be cautious. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that we have been very open and very liberal, but now we should be more cautious. I'm just saying this indicates a change that Srila Prabhupada wanted to tighten up. And actually even from early in the movement, Srila Prabhupada is saying we should boil the milk. He spoke about Varnashram College when he saw that so many of his disciples were falling down. For the Varnashram College, he also said that should be for men, not for women. And he said there should be a Varnashram College at every one of our ISKCON centers.
Okay.
So we are talking about a change that has never been instituted and agreed. It's going to be difficult to institute.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be so difficult if we first of all accepted that this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and then work to how to implement it instead of just trying to pretend it's not there or that people won't like it or whatever.
There are many areas in which our movement needs to work. And to say that nobody is actually... the reason why we're having this podcast is we are trying to, at least I'm trying to understand how we could do it. So,
okay.
So that's
all right.
Now the second point, so the emergency has increased. So just as Prabhupada had accommodations when the emergencies were there, so even today we need to have accommodations to attract new people. Even Prabhupada had to do some adjustments. Prabhupada had to do some emergency things. So in that sense, the emergency is there, and it's even greater today, internally as well as externally. So in society, as in the broader society, as well as in our society. So the emergency operations also need to keep going on. Does that?
What do you mean within? What do you mean within our society?
Well, our movement is highly depleted in the West. If there were no Indians, there were practically no Krishna consciousness movement in America and UK.
Not much, yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, there is both an internal emergency, and Prabhupada's vision was very clear that he wanted in the rest of the world, local people to come, not just Indians to come. So.
Okay, well, Srila Prabhupada said that book distribution and farms are our solid programs that can change the whole world. When there were rumors that book distribution would stop, Srila Prabhupada wrote, "Whoever told you that is a rascal saying it in my name. I never said that. Rather, the Sankirtan movement will expand, continuing so long as we are sincere. When I came in the beginning, I began to expand it, and now it is going on, and there is no question of it stopping. Therefore, go on with your lifetime plans, making secure in distributing of books. There is no cessation. This movement is eternal." So massive book distribution. Srila Prabhupada said, book distribution and farms are our programs that can change this world. I'm giving some quotes from Srila Prabhupada.
I'm sorry. How is this an answer to the question? So my question.
Because this is what.
My question
more
was.
Than the point I'm making here is that what I read from these statements of Srila Prabhupada, more than making social adjustments, we have to promote book distribution and farms, and this will change the world. That's the. Srila Prabhupada didn't stress so much that we have to make social adjustments, but he said, if this book distribution is managed properly, pushed on with great enthusiasm and determination, at the same time, if our men keep spiritually strong, then the whole world will become Krishna conscious. If we introduce these books in all the bookstores, schools, colleges, libraries, and everyone's home, our religion will be the only religion in the world very soon. This prediction has been made publicly here in one newspaper by a Japanese philosopher that within 10 years, Krishna consciousness will be the world religion. If you all keep preaching in such a pure way, this will undoubtedly prove true. And then another major factor for worldwide success, Srila Prabhupada said, on these farms, we can demonstrate the full Varnashram system. If these farms become successful, then the whole world will be enveloped by Krishna consciousness. So the point I'm making here is that on these, actually some more quotes. If we simply repeat this philosophy exactly as it is, Srila Prabhupada said, without any misrepresentation or adulteration, then this movement will never be checked and we will conquer the world. We stand on our Krishna philosophy, and because it has the full potency of Krishna himself, there is no limit to the effect it will have upon the world if we remain sincere and convinced for spreading this philosophy purely. So we can say that we're not spreading the movement because we haven't adjusted to the Western ethos. But the emphasis that Srila Prabhupada gave was on the programs themselves of massive book distribution and of establishing farms to demonstrate Varnashram. Srila Prabhupada said that people would join our farms in their millions. At least that's quoted from Rameshwar Swami at the time. And it is feasible that if we did have farms operating as Srila Prabhupada wanted, that people would be looking to us because there are so many people looking for solutions to the whole disorganized and horrible society that's going on in the world. We would be able to if we had done, as Srila Prabhupada said, and presented society with 4 varnas, 4 ashrams, specific roles, gender roles, we'd be able to show it and say it strongly without having to try to adjust to the present Western ethos. If we adjust to the present Western ethos, then we may have to adjust again in 10 or 20 years because it's always changing.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, okay, go on.
Yeah.
Say something.
Now, the word adjustment has a strong negative connotation sometimes in our movement. But adjustment is just a part of life. Prabhupada couldn't have spoken in Bengali in America. He spoke in English. Prabhupada engaged men and women in different services.
I don't see that adjust has got
So in that sense,
I don't see that adjust has got such a bad connotation.
So I got the answer through a question to my question that you said no matter how acute the emergency is, what you are saying is Prabhupada said that book distribution and farms will attract people. So independent of the external internal emergency, this could be this itself, if we had done it effectively, that could have attracted people. So let's let's move forward.
That should be our pole star. That's my point.
Okay.
First of all, let's see what Srila Prabhupada's plans are and work to effect them. And within that, we can adjust here this way, that way, and the other way. But first of all, let's see what Srila Prabhupada's program is. And if we do that, then Yasya Deve Parabhatya Yatha Deve Tata Guru Tasyaite Pratita Hyartha Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Then Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, they'll give us the intelligence to do it. But if we avoid these programs, thankfully book distribution is going on, but the program for Varnashram and farms is practically dropped, unfortunately. So we should bring this back to the forefront. Please speak.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah.
Something else I should say. I was just started that what is that? That's the saying. You probably know this one. I don't know who it's originally attributed to. That, what is it? The church that marries the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, will be a widow tomorrow. Who said that? Who's that attributed to? I thought you might know that one.
Heard that, yeah.
Yeah. Because the spirit of the times changes all the time.
So is it G.K. Chesterton? It is.
I really don't know. Quite possibly.
Okay.
Quite possibly. He was quite a character. I mean, he's quite a formidable theologist, wasn't he? Theologian. Theologist.
Yeah, it's William Ralph Ing. It's William Ralph Ing. I just Googled.
You did? Okay.
Okay. So
I never heard of him.
Now, if we consider that farms were attempted to some extent during Prabhupada's times, and our attempts to say replicate some things, they did lead to significant problems. If you consider an experiment or other places, so is it that just we didn't want to do? Is it? I don't think it's out of defiance to Prabhupada that we didn't want to do Varnashram. It is just that there were a lot of problems in that, and the problems, say for example, have faith in the Guru and Krishna. Many parents with great faith in Guru and Krishna send their children to Gurukuls, maybe thousands of miles away, and those children were abused, and terribly abused. And many parents had their daughters, especially in New Vrindavan, married at the age of 14, 15. And not one of those marriages has survived. Not one of those girls is even a devotee now. So attempts have...
Is that a fact?
Yeah, I've asked several leaders in the movement who are associated with New Vrindavan. Not one of them is even practicing bhakti right now. So those who had those...
Not at any level. They're all meat eaters, and they're all... have no interest in Krishna consciousness whatsoever.
Well, I mean, it depends on how we define Krishna consciousness. Certainly, they don't want to associate with the movement. They may worship Krishna privately. We don't know, but they definitely have such bad experiences that they don't want to be a part, associate with the movement right now. So the attempts were made, and there were quite serious problems. So there's an ethos where women were told to be completely submissive to men, and there has been domestic violence. We know a particular leader of the movement, he publicly said on American television that yes, just as you whip horses, you should beat women to discipline them.
Really? Who said that?
Bhakti Kirtanand Swami.
See.
So he quoted basically, I think Prabhupada quoted Tulsidas, Tadan ke adhikari.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
based on that, he quoted that. And it has happened that there has been abuse and violence. So the question is that, like we say, once burnt, twice shy. So the attempts have been made, and the attempts have had sometimes disastrous consequences. In fact, we could say that the entire Gurukul generation, we have maybe only a handful of young people who have become devotees, and others have had problems. So there are naturally some understandable reservations about going on a path which did lead to severe problems. So my question is that instead of saying that we just rejected Prabhupada's instructions, now how can we go ahead in such a way that we don't repeat the mistakes that happened in our own movement's history?
Well, one way is to close down Krishna consciousness altogether. It's not just the Gurukul children. What's happening right now with our endeavors to preach Krishna consciousness outside India especially is that we make devotees, and we make devotees. It's a funny term. All right, we bring people to Krishna consciousness. They stay for some time and they go away again. So Hotra Swami used to call it the ISKCON tube. They come in one end, they walk along a little bit, and they fall out the other. And we have a huge number of devotees, people who are still devotees all over the world, who are still practicing in some way or other, but they don't want to associate with ISKCON. They may come to a Rath Yatra or something. They don't want to come close. They may affiliate with some Sri Vaishnav group or Gauriya Math group. It's part of a much bigger problem. Possibly that is also because we haven't implemented Varnashram Dharma, in which people we give scope for people to practice at different levels. But I'm just saying, if we say that, well, Gurukul didn't work, so we should stop Gurukul. Well, we could say, well, maybe Krishna consciousness isn't working.
No, Maharaj,
so
I never
should stop
said
Krishna consciousness.
No, Maharaj, I never said
it-
we should stop Gurukul. I never said that. I'm just saying that, say, for example, well, with respect to...
Well, practically it has stopped, hasn't it? Because the even in India, we're not promoting Gurukul. We're promoting basically the government syllabus schools, which Srila Prabhupada was so much against.
Well,
That's the main focus.
yeah, frankly, it is through that modern education, we have got the best devotees in our second generation. Some of the most...
But they came from that to Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada's aim was to have our own schools to save people from modern education. That's Srila Prabhupada's vision.
Yeah. Okay, so...
We have made terrible mistakes, but still Srila Prabhupada wanted us to establish Varnashram. He wanted us to have Gurukuls. Another example we could say, book distribution went very wrong in the Western world. We corrected it and we went forward. The guru system went terribly wrong, and some correction has been there. It's not as bad as it used to be, I hope we can say.
Yes.
If you want to say that, okay, well, marriage in the West, it's still a disaster, because so many of our devotees, they get married and then they divorce, but we don't stop it. We have to continue with it,
of course,
and try and do it in such a way that it works.
Yes, Maharaj, of course.
Problems are unavoidable. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not going to have problems, that just by some magic wand, we just say the word Varnashram and then everything becomes tinsel. It's not like that.
Yes.
Problems are unavoidable.
Yes,
there are going to be
yeah.
problems, even in the best Varnashram system, maybe with the exception of Ayodhya. at the time of Lord Ram. But even in Krishna's Dwaraka, there was Shatrajit.
Yeah. Yes, Maharaj.
Human nature is, Varnashram is a system to regulate human demoniac tendencies, you can say. Basically, we're all in this material world. Krishna Buli Sejivan Adi Bahimuk. We're all away from Krishna. So it's a system to try to regulate our and purify our love. Actually, the system itself doesn't do that. Krishna consciousness does that. Krishna consciousness is purifying, and the Varnashram system provides a framework for us to live, because man is a social animal. We have to live in some society. But if we live in a society that's regulated according to Krishna's plan, as far as possible, Srila Prabhupada said it's not possible to fully bring back the old system. But if we do that, as far as possible, that will provide a kind of society which is conducive to hearing and chanting about and serving Krishna. Whereas the present society we have, as you rightly say, it's getting worse day by day. As stated in the Bhagavatam, day by day things become worse. And the whole society is becoming, well, it is already hell, but it's becoming more and more hellish and difficult to be Krishna conscious, because you have to live among materialistic people. And just like if you go to the Karmi schools, then the whole idea is how to become a materialistic success, competitive spirit, whereas Varnashram works on cooperativeness. So many things. Implementing Varnashram is a huge thing. It's beyond our capacity, but Krishna can empower us. I'm sure if we all get together and think, Srila Prabhupada wanted this, let's do what we have to do, and let's pray to Srila Prabhupada for the strength, the energy, consulting his instructions, how to implement them. By the way, one thing, you're saying that the farms are all flopped and this and that. Okay, it's a complex history, but if you want to say something, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Sorry,
so,
I'm
yeah, two things. See, first of all,
but the points you're making, actually, they could be answered in a extensive manner.
I'm not in any way saying that we should not have farm communities. In fact, I'm in Govardhan Eco Village, and here there is an eco village, and there's outreach happening elsewhere also from here. So I'm just my point is that when we tried it, there were some difficulties. Now we talk about we had with respect to every system which we have tried, we had problems. So like we have said, devotees coming and going out. Now we have created devotee care system so that devotees' needs are taken care of. If we have had problem with the guru system, now we have had various measures taken care of, by which so at least the system has become a little more, you could say, a little more robust. We hadn't any major challenges with the gurus in the last decade or so, or a little more than that. So we have worked towards improving things. So similarly, we can work towards improving Varnashram. In principle, that's perfectly fine. So all that I'm saying is,
we have to start it first.
Yeah,
then we can talk of improving it.
Yeah. So my question is that in today's world, when we have a particular hierarchical structure, there is, because as you said, it's Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga means there is a huge tendency to abuse power. After all, as you said, we are all demoniac. And Varnashram does hand over power to certain people. And in a way in which, at least if Varnashram is implemented the way it was implemented, there were very few systems of redressal. There were very few systems by which the kids in the Gurukul, where could they go? Whom could they tell? They were completely taken away from their parents. So my only point is that we should go forward in Varnashram, but how do we ensure? Of course, as you said, pray to Krishna and have faith in Prabhupada. That's important, of course, and we need to do that. But along with that, over the years, have we come up with some ways to fix the inevitable problems that will come through the centralization of power? So in today's world, with respect to, say, we take the question of women or children. children are abused in their schools, children are abused in religious institutions also. And then women, the biggest problems, the biggest assaults or abuses of women happen inside their homes, not on the streets, although what happens on the street gets publicized more. Statistics indicate that significant amount of abuses happen inside the homes. So when we, in one sense, deliberately disempower women by not giving them education, by not giving them any alternatives, and then claim that this is a healthy family because the woman is not, because there is no divorce. Well, we taking away a person's capacity to have freedom and leaving them with no choices, and then creating a system which is saying that the system is stable. Is that really stability? So the question is, how do we prevent abuse of power in a system which centralizes power and hands it to people who are likely to abuse it because it's Kali Yuga?
Therefore, we need Daiva Varnashram with Krishna consciousness in the center. Exactly what are all the answers? I can't say off the top of my head. Like I say, it requires a group effort. Let all the big leaders come together and think, how can we do it? We can do it if we're empowered by Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. We will get the answers. But we have to make the resolve that we should do it. Regarding giving women freedom, okay, this is from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, which we distribute in huge numbers all over the world. This is from chapter 16, text 7, a very well-known verse. Pravriting cha nivriting cha janana vidurasuraha. Srila Prabhupada's translation, those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. Now, this doesn't mention anything about social roles per se. It doesn't mention anything about the roles of women per se. But Srila Prabhupada chooses to use this as an example to demonstrate how demoniac people at the present time do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. And I know that even quoting this, I'm likely to be lampooned and shot down and called a, I don't know, demon or whatever. But I'm reading from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, which we are making a huge effort in this month, particularly to distribute in huge quantities all over the world. So Srila Prabhupada writes, in the Manu Samhita, it is clearly stated that a woman should not be given freedom. That does not mean that women are to be kept as slaves, but they are like children. Children are not given freedom, but that does not mean that they are kept as slaves. The demons have now neglected such injunctions, and they think that women should be given as much freedom as men. However, this has not improved the social condition of the world. Actually, a woman should be given protection at every stage of life. She should be given protection by the father in her younger days, by the husband in her youth, and by the grown-up sons in her old age. This is proper social behavior according to the Manu Samhita. But modern education has artificially devised a puffed-up concept of womanly life, and therefore marriage is practically now an imagination in human society. The social condition of women is thus not very good now, although those who are married are in a better condition than those who are proclaiming their so-called freedom. The demons, therefore, do not accept any instruction which is good for society, and because they do not follow the experience of great sages and the rules and regulations laid down by the sages, the social condition of the demoniac people is very miserable. It's a tough one. It's hard for many people to accept, but it's right there. It's what Srila Prabhupada said.
Yes, Maharaj. It's good you brought up this quote. Prabhupada is specifically saying that women should not be treated as slaves. Women should be protected. Now, the main reason.
So let's work as a society to do that, to
No, no,
protect children, women,
whose
old men,
responsibility-
brahmanas, and cows. Let's work on that. Let's work on it.
Whose responsibility is that? The responsibility is of the men to protect the women. But if women,
Well, within the family unit, yes.
yeah, but if women find that the men are exploiting them, the men are abusing them. Now, feminism can have many causes, and it is very easy to talk about the problems that feminism has caused. But it's equally important to talk about the problems that led to feminism. And one of the biggest problems was that men were exploitative, men were abusive. So if we can't just, women should be protected, but when they don't feel protected, when they objectively they're not protected, even in the Western world, domestic violence is still a big problem. Now, of course,
It's not only men to women, it's women to men also.
No, that is fine. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that, but the majority is men to women.
Well, the majority reported is men to women, but I personally know of many examples of men who've come to me and told me their wives hit them and this and that, and they don't hit them back. Anyway, go on. We don't want to get too much into all the details. But my point again is the same. Let us come together and discuss how to implement that. The system that Krsna and Srila Prabhupada have given, we should have the faith that this is a perfect system, and that if we come together and we really decide that we have to do it because Prabhupada wanted it, then Prabhupada will give us the intelligence. It may require a lot of discussion and this and that. As far as exploitation, you're saying the men exploit the women, but the problem is the exploitative spirit. Because we see that when women when now the laws are such that women can exploit men, and it happens all the time. There are so many cases of women, they just go and report to the police station something false, and the husband gets arrested, no questions asked. It's the exploitative spirit. Now in India and in many other countries, women have the upper hand legally, and they use it to exploit the men. So it's the exploitative spirit. It's not by making any material adjustment per se that we can destroy the exploitative spirit. Krishna consciousness has to be there, that should destroy the exploitative spirit. Therefore, Daiva Varnashram Dharma has to be Varnashram society with very strongly Krishna consciousness in the center.
Yes, Maharaj.
I don't have all the. I'm not saying I'm sitting here and I have all the answers, but we should come together and discuss how we can implement it. You're saying that the farms and all this, they don't work, but
no. I didn't say they didn't work. I don't work. I said that when we tried them, there were problems. I'm not saying that.
Definitely. But on the farms itself, as far as I can see in the Western world, the main reason they didn't work is because devotees, they can earn more money working in the cities. And they weren't prepared to, of course, it's a whole complex social tapestry. There were guru problems.
Hare Krishna. This is, to me, I don't know about the rest of you, it's quite an interesting discussion that our society needs to look really deep into it. And I decided to play this. I'm just seeing Shivas Vanachari is here. If I had seen you earlier, Prabhuji would have humbly requested you to speak, because His Holiness Kavicandra Maharaj was to speak today, and for some reason he couldn't. So we decided to play this tape so that the devotees may discuss, because it's a very important topic. And so with that, it's quite a lengthy discussion. It's about 90 minutes. We cannot play it all, but at least we've heard the discussion, and I think it's worth trying to discuss what we heard. And more importantly, how we can try to come to a consensus where we recognize that this is the need that has to be accomplished and the way forward, how to accomplish it. Because like Sri Krishna Bhaktivedanta Maharaj oftentimes used to say that we are all in this together. So if ISKCON grows well, we all enjoy it. If it grows bad, we all suffer it. Hare Krishna. So with that, I'll end here and then ask the devotees, whatever anyone wants to share, you are free to share, please. Hare Krishna. Srivas Prabhu, I don't know when you came in, if you would like to say something. I don't know what you heard. Hare Krishna. All right. Ganga Prasha Prabhu, you have your hand up. Prabhuji, you may unmute and ask or say whatever you want to say. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandava Pranam. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah, I only had the iPod cast was very, very interesting topic. And Bhakti Vikas Swami, we had wanted to invite him on this platform earlier, but we were discouraged that he's a controversial person. But this controversial discussion is very beneficial. So I request if you can share that podcast, share it.
All right.
Even if others don't want, I want it because it makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. Well, I will share it in the chat room. So actually, I had thought of that devotees can watch it to the end later on. So I'll do that. Thank you, Sri Ganga Prasad Prabhu. Any other comments? I found certain points very interesting from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Of course, he is a brahmachari, so of course, as devotees, we respect everybody. We respect, excuse me to say, even lower animals. But we have special respect to leadership. So he has so much respect for His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Maharaj. But this was a podcast. So he had to ask questions that would possibly be asked by any other person. So he was in that spirit. So one thing I found very interesting was, how do we determine whether what Srila Prabhupada said in this situation, in this instance, was said because that was the standard he wanted us to follow, or he said and asked us to do that because it was an emergency? If you recall that, emergency situations and standard situation. So I found that very interesting, and I don't know if anybody has anything to say about that. Like in the early beginning of the movement, there were certain things Srila Prabhupada instituted that were based on emergency, because he had to have certain people as sannyasis to preach as sannyasis. So some of the sannyasis at the time were not qualified per se, but in the battlefield, you got to have a captain. So Srila Prabhupada had to have sannyasis. And some of them had to learn on the job. And they turned out to be amazing. And some fell apart. So what should be the standard of initiating a devotee into the sannyas ashram? So I found that to be very interesting, which is emergency and standard situations that Srila Prabhupada gave us, which is really important for us to discuss. Well, any other observation? Like I mentioned, Srivastvanacharya, I don't know if he's still here. Shriman Varaha is here, Ganga Prasad himself is here, Hari Chakra, Salika. There are lots of senior devotees on the platform. Acharya Purandar Prabhu is here, Ras Vilas, Gayatri, Loka, Hare Krishna. Oh, let me remember this. Let me show you the. All right. All right, so I just shared the lecture we were listening to. I just shared it, so anyone who is interested can copy and then watch it later. Oh, Shriman Varaha Prabhu, please unmute and go ahead with your comment or whatever you have to say. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna.
obeisances.
Glories to
All
Gurudev.
glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, that podcast is a very interesting one. And it's just an example that we cannot solve our social problem through media discussion for many reasons. I appreciate the fact that Bhaktivikas Maharaj was saying that the leaders should get together and discuss how to implement what Prabhupada wanted. And he repeated that again and again. But then I was just thinking that it seems to be, I won't use the word oblivious, but it seems to be maybe unaware, maybe unaware of the fact that it is the real problem is the divergence of opinion among the leaders that make it difficult to implement the system. I repeat that again. The main problem that we are having is the divergence again and again amongst the leaders that make it difficult to implement the system. Gurudev Bhakti Maharaj, once he was speaking about this social development problem, and he was giving an example of Mauritius, that Mauritius was such a small Hindu community, a small country that, took in Krishna consciousness. The leaders were very much appreciated. And he was suggesting that the leaders of ISKCON should use Mauritius as an example of a model of a Krishna conscious community, of example of what Prabhupada wanted. And he said, unfortunately, many of the leaders did not see in the same way. They did not see what he was seeing. So, I mean, we have had from many leaders in the past different opinions on this same issue. So Bhaktivikas Maharaj saying that the leaders should get together and decide. It seems to be undermining the fact that is exactly the problem, that the leaders couldn't get together to have a consensus on how to go forward. And now it is that the problem is such that it is impractical, impossible.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shriman Varaprabhu, for that observation. And it's very interesting. I'm reminded of what Bhaktivikas Maharaj was saying, that he was saying, I'm not sitting here like trying to claim that I have answers to everything. No, we all have to get together. The leadership will have to get together. Of course, the leadership, they are, excuse to say, they're also human beings and they are individuals. And so they all have different opinions and approaches. But when they all come together in one spirit of trying to serve Srila Prabhupada's movement, then maybe with difficulty we still will be able to make a headway. So thank you for sharing that.
No, I haven't finished. I haven't finished, please.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I haven't finished.
Okay, go ahead.
We have seen example of individuals who had their vision and they are implementing it. Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu said that he himself is from Echo Village, you know, the Radhana Maharaj Echo Village. And he said they're having outreach out in the world. They're having, so the problem I'm seeing is that why don't we copy the successful systems? We have seen so many individual efforts yielding results, but ISKCON never came together once to implement any of them as a standard. In our preaching, we have seen also towards, going away from the emergency system and towards making people practicing Krishna consciousness from home. We have seen Jayapatak Maharaj started the congregational ministry. But it never became ISKCON standard. Remaining individual. So we can see that the problem is not that they don't have visions individually, but they never agree to implement any of them as a system for the societies. Since Prabhupada was no longer there, it seems that there was no one leader whom everybody wants to accept his vision as a standard. So anyway, that I will hand it there, but just understand deeply that it is not because they lack opinions, but there's just no one person that everyone wants to accept his vision as a standard. And we have seen them succeeding individually. Radhana Maharaj Echo Village is a good example. So that's my point.
Thank you for sharing that.
Maybe we go that way, that the leaders, execute and implement their system in their own way, and their followers follow. And we see the examples, of their success. But as ISKCON as a whole, it looks like it's a dream that may never be realized.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, it's very important, and it's so obvious for everyone to see it, and you would think that it would be easier for us to follow, but for whatever reason, maybe some of the examples you're giving is prevented us from following. Because I remember where Ratnat Maharaj shared in one of his lectures. I didn't know about it until I listened to that lecture that time, that he was facing so much criticisms, so much problems when he started establishing the Echo Village. And even when they started the Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mayapur, there was so much backlash. And in that lecture, he was saying how instrumental Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was to them. That Bhaktivedanta Maharaj came and then he gathered all the devotees, the professional devotees who were working to get the whole hospital machine started and encouraged them. And so from that encouragement and with their focus and the plan, now we have the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, which is amazing worldwide. And then we have the Echo Village, which is amazing worldwide. And like Vara Prabhu, you were sharing about Japataka Maharaj starting this Namahata Bhakti Vriksha course. I remember His Grace Kantia Prabhu oftentimes would use the Jehovah's Witnesses as reference point, how successful they are in Nigeria, that ISKCON can emulate. But I don't know, probably sometimes we feel we are too big to learn from someone else. I don't know. But His Grace Kantia Prabhu, you may ask your question or say whatever you want to say, please. This is supposed to be a discussion.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Am I audible?
You are, yes.
Yeah, I share same thoughts as Vara Prabhu is opining, and I only want to encourage the concept that let's keep talking. In mediation, in mediation process and conflict resolution, like he rightly said, media is not going to give the solution because media may not actually represent your mindset and your body language. But when we meet together and we are talking, we can see each person's expression, and it is important talking. Second point is, yes, we may not all agree. We may have divergent opinions, but in mediation, there is the tool of collaboration, and collaboration will bring us to acceptance of unity in diversity, because that is part of the way forward for ISKCON today. We will be diversified, and we will not share the same concept or play the same role. But if we approve of each other, that is what is required. Approving of each other is not maligning. Because I'm not doing what you want, then you malign me, and then you derogate me to the background. It will be our collective failure. But if you approve and recognize and allow me a level playing ground, then I'll achieve. It's just like he said in economics. He said division of labor is it increases productivity and makes for specialization. Everybody will specialize in his own project as it is, and everybody was successful. But when we start castigating, maligning, then automatically we are set for a doom. So I agree we should be talking. I also agree that we will not agree together, but I have the opinion that if we approve of our differences, then we will create unity in diversity, and then we will all increase our preaching, our relevance in society. This is what I want to put in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ganga Prasha Prabhu. Your contribution is very much needed and very much important. I think for us as struggling, conditioned beings, sometimes it becomes very difficult for us to accept others' opinions, especially if their opinion is different from ours. But as long as we live as social animals, that is always going to be there. And so, as an auxiliary to collaboration, there should also be a compromise. Because I may want this to be done this way, and the other person wants it done that way. Then we come together, we see how we can meet in the middle, because it's all for the service of ISKCON, Guru and Krishna. So, but these topics are very, very important. Like Bhakti Vikash Maharaj was saying, we cannot just depend on the social changes to make things happen. And we cannot ignore such social changes either. See, that's what it makes the leadership very, very difficult. You know, it's easy to find fault or say what should have been done. But if you are there at the time, it's very difficult. That is why whenever someone is in trouble, the other person standing outside the problem can offer better advice because he is not in it. But once you are in the situation, it's not so easy. It's not so easy. It's always said it's easier said than done. I can sit here and theorize and say so many beautiful things, but when it comes to the application, it's not so easy. That is why leadership It's not an easy thing. And we all have to give our support to our leaders. How can we deny or ignore the pains and the agonies lots of our Guru Kulis went through? Like Chaitanya Charan Prabhu was saying, how many of them are devotees today? How many of them are devotees today? So as devotees, we should always, the other time I was opportune to speak, I was saying that a true leader's major concern is how to help the others, not myself. So we erred, we faltered, we made mistakes. But if we accept that we made mistakes and go back to see where we made the mistakes, then we can try to learn how to avoid repeating such same mistakes. But if we ignore that, no, we never made mistakes, they just didn't understand us, then there is a problem. Ganga Prashad Prabhu, you have anything else to say? Hare Krishna. Well, this is supposed to be a discussion for all of us. I know not everybody likes to speak in public, but this is a very important discussion for our movement.
It is conscientizing. I don't have any other thing to say. My hand raised was from the previous.
Okay, from the previous.
But then this discussion is thought provoking, and if we apply our conscience, we'll find the need to see that discussing is the way forward.
Yeah.
Like you said, collaborating or compromising is all part of the 5 limbs of conflict resolution.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but we have to get cracking, start from somewhere.
Yeah.
But ultimately, to arrive at unity in diversity.
Yeah.
Just like example is given, there's an orange or lime or lemon that was there to be shared. One person wanted to make juice out of the lemon, and the other person needed to make flavor for the cake that is baking. So when they both demanded from the lemon, what they ultimately achieved was divide the lemon into 2. That was compromise.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have furthered their discussion and expressed their needs, they will achieve a win-win situation where the man who wants the skin of the lemon can get it, and the one who wants the juice could also get, instead of just sharing it into 2 halves, and they both got something, but it wasn't comprehensive.
Yeah.
So yes, compromise is called for with exhaustive discussions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, if devotees have nothing else to say, like I said, I have posted the link in the chat room, so whoever is interested can copy and then listen to it later on. But thank you all for being here day in, day out. And we hope and pray that there wasn't anything serious that prevented Maharaj from showing up tonight, today, I should say today, tonight, wherever you may be. That is just maybe other commitments couldn't let him show up. So we ask all the devotees to unmute, and then we chant Hare Krishna to express our appreciation for Guru and Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yeah. All glories to His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to